Over just one weekend, a monster weather event, Storm Marta, absolutely tore a path of destruction across Spain, Portugal, and Morocco. So today, we're going to break down the anatomy of this superstorm, what made it so powerful, and the unbelievable damage it left behind. Right off the bat, you need to understand, this was not just another bad storm. Officials on the ground are using some really serious language to describe 2026. You don't just throw around phrases like exceptionally violent unless you're seeing something way, way outside the norm. It really sets the stage for what happened next. So what was the engine behind all this power? Well, it's a wild phenomenon called an atmospheric river. I mean, picture that. A literal river flowing through the sky, just funneling incredible amounts of moisture straight from the tropics. That's what fueled Storm Marta, and that's why it was able to dump so much rain so fast. And the timing of this thing, it couldn't have been worse. Marta hit over the first weekend of February 2026, right on the heels of another big storm. The ground was already soaked, the rivers were already high, and this new system just turned a really bad situation into an absolute catastrophe. Spain was first in the line of fire, and it felt Marta's full force, especially in the southern region of Andalusia. The storm basically just parked itself over the area and unleashed a deluge that completely overwhelmed rivers and forced thousands to flee their homes. And when we say thousands, we mean it. The human scale of this is just immense. 11,000 people had to be evacuated in Spain alone. I mean, that's like an entire small city suddenly on the move because the water was rising to critical levels. The economic fallout was just as staggering. The first estimates for damage to farms and infrastructure in Spain, over €500 million. That is a devastating blow to the region's economy, and recovery is going to be a massive, massive job. For a lot of people, daily life just ground to a halt. We're talking more than 170 roads shut down, train services suspended, and even major airports had huge disruptions. And for farmers, they use the word catastrophic to describe what happened to their crops. The impact was felt in every single corner of the region. As the storm kept moving across the peninsula, Portugal found itself in a similar crisis. It got so bad, the government had to declare a state of calamity. Now, that's a formal step that basically means this is an emergency that's beyond our normal ability to respond. And beyond all the damage to buildings and roads, there was a real human tragedy. 2 people lost their lives in Portugal. And just heartbreakingly, one of them was a 46-year-old emergency volunteer who actually drowned while trying to rescue other people. It's just a stark reminder of how dangerous these events really are. The scale of the crisis in Portugal is just hard to wrap your head around. To stop the flooding from getting even worse, dams had to release an amount of water in just 3 days that's equal to what the entire country uses in a year. Just think about that for a second. It even upended democracy, forcing them to postpone a presidential vote in some areas. As the storm system pushed south, it slammed into North Africa. Northern Morocco got hit with this incredibly intense rainfall that triggered sudden, deadly flash floods, which caught a lot of communities completely off guard. And here, the tragedy just deepened. 4 people were reported to have died in Morocco. And what's just absolutely devastating is that 3 of those victims were children who were swept away in a vehicle by the powerful floodwaters. The sheer intensity of the rain was unbelievable. This wasn't just happening out in the countryside. Major cities like Tangier and Casablanca were totally swamped. Get this, in Tangier, they got nearly 2 months' worth of rain in a single 24-hour period. It's an almost unimaginable amount of water. But in the middle of all this tragedy, something complex and totally unexpected happened in Morocco. After years of suffering through a really intense drought, these destructive storms actually managed to fill their reservoirs back up, securing at least a year's supply of drinking water for the country. So, if we look at the overall toll, you can really see the different ways each nation was hit. Spain faced this massive economic damage and huge evacuations. Portugal had to deal with major civic disruption and tragically 2 fatalities. And Morocco suffered those deadly flash floods that claimed 4 lives, 3 of them children. But here's the thing, Storm Marta isn't just a single, isolated storm. It's more like a flashing red light, a huge warning sign of a much larger and, frankly, more concerning pattern that's emerging in the region's climate. And that brings us back to these powerful words from officials.
I mean, when leaders who are used to dealing with all sorts of severe weather start using phrases like particularly unusual and exceptionally violent, it's a clear signal that the rules of the game are changing. They're seeing something new and something deeply worrying.
And this shift in the climate is really stark. The old, predictable pattern of getting rain during certain seasons, it's disappearing. And it's being replaced by this volatile new reality, long, brutal droughts that are suddenly shattered by these extreme downpours like Marta. Scientists say this weather whiplash is being fueled by warmer waters in the Atlantic. So where does this leave everyone? Well, even though the storm itself is passing, the crisis is far from over. Now the long, difficult process of recovery begins, along with a whole lot of uncertainty about what's coming next. According to the latest reports, Storm Marta is finally weakening. The rain is stopping, the winds are dying down. But for the people on the ground, this is really just the end of the beginning. The floodwaters are still there, and the true scale of the damage is only now starting to become clear. There is some good news. Many of the evacuees are starting that long journey home, but the danger hasn't completely passed. There are still red alerts active for some rivers. This isn't going to be a quick fix. A full recovery is going to take months. And, a little chillingly, forecasters are already warning that more storms could be on the way. And that really brings us to the final, critical question. Is this break in the weather we're seeing right now just a short break? Or is this violent cycle of extreme drought, followed by destructive storms, the new normal for this part of the world? That's the question that millions of people are now being forced to ask.